Number 9. Couple that kills together, stays together. On December 4th, 2017, the body of 24-year-old Sydney Loof was found dismembered in plastic bags scattered along the roads of Clay County. Before she died, Loof met up with her Tinder date, 24-year-old Bailey Boswell, at her house on the 15th of November. At Boswell's house, Bailey and her 53-year-old boyfriend, Aubrey Trail, quickly strangled Loof to death and turned her phone off 23 minutes after she arrived. Just a few hours before the murder, Boswell and Trail bought shears and a hacksaw, both of which they used to dismember her body in 13 parts before putting them in plastic bags, as if they already knew what they were going to do. According to Trail, they killed her after revealing their, quote, lifestyle, which included fraud and having group sex. Apparently, Loof freaked out and said she'd reveal what they were doing, something that Trail could not stand for under any circumstances. Trail was spotted on surveillance footage going inside the North Lincoln Menard store where Loof worked as a cashier a few days before the murder. The judges suggested that since Loof lived alone in Lincoln and a few hours away from her family in the Nyla Trail, Boswell probably thought she'd be the perfect target for their crimes, since they assumed that no one would come looking for her. Trail also said, quote, "I could care less," end quote, about his sentence, but he ended up getting the death penalty for the murder of Sydney Loof. His girlfriend, Boswell, was charged with first-degree murder and more for her part. She was only handed a life sentence, 50 years behind bars without parole, but perhaps she should have gotten the same sentence as her boyfriend. Number 8. Teenagers. On March 16th, a 21-year-old man thought he was going to meet up with his Tinder date in Kenwood, Chicago. However, the Tinder date was actually a 17-year-old who baited him to meet her. He ended up getting attacked by two 18-year-old boys she brought with her instead. The boys, who were later identified as Josiah McDonald and Jeremiah Manny, and the girl forced the man to take money out of an ATM at gunpoint. After this group left the man on the side of the road and took his car, he ended up calling the police from a stranger's phone. His car was later located and the group was arrested. Turns out the 21-year-old man wasn't the only one attacked by the teens that day. Around a half hour earlier, the group also attacked a 23-year-old man who was brought into a basement by the girl. Once he was in, the group started beating him and stole everything he had, which included his phone, wallet, and Apple Watch. They forced him to go back to his Jeep, then drive down the road where they kicked him out of the car and fled. The man used someone's phone to call the police. When the 23-year-old was taken away by the ambulance, he was said to have had several head wounds, a hematoma in his ear, and several other injuries all over his body. Josiah McDonald, Jeremiah Manny, and the 17-year-old girl were charged with aggravated kidnapping, vehicular hijacking, and theft. Number 7. Rosie O'Donnell's missing daughter. On August 11, 2015, famous comedian Rosie O'Donnell's 17-year-old daughter Chelsea went missing in Nyack, New York. A week later, Chelsea was found in the attic of a 25-year-old heroin dealer named Steve Shearer. Chelsea and Steve met on Tinder, and she willingly went to Steve's house. She was surprisingly also completely unharmed when found. According to the police, Chelsea and Steve were having a very inappropriate conversation in their Tinder chats, considering Chelsea was underage. Steve Shearer had already been charged with third-degree possession of heroin and third-degree child endangerment back in 2012. Despite these charges, Steve says he didn't know she was a minor since she was using Tinder, which requires you to be 18 or above to use it. Stephen Shearer was charged with child endangerment and distribution of obscenity to a minor. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Number 6. The Tinder Serial Killer. On July 17, 2018, 29-year-old Samantha Stewart was radio silent for nearly an entire day, which was unusual, prompting her father to go check up on her. When he entered her home in Queens, New York, he found her body wrapped up in a bloody sheet. She had also had all of her teeth removed. The NYPD linked her murder to 27-year-old Daniel Drayton, who met Stewart on Tinder. When the police found Drayton, he was at a hotel in Los Angeles holding another woman hostage who he had sexually assaulted and strangled as well. Thankfully, she was saved by the police. The police think that Drayton had been using Tinder to find all of his victims. Before he killed Samantha, Drayton had actually choked his ex-girlfriend in a park. His bail was only $1,000, but the judge dropped it, allowing him to walk free without bail. Drayton said, quote, "The voices told me she had to die, and that voice basically, quote, mind-controlled him. However, he claimed he tried to bring her back to life, but when it didn't work, he used bleach to clean up the crime scene so none of his DNA could be found." Drayton had also been accused of murdering 7 other women. Drayton has been accused of sexually assaulting and strangling Samantha Stewart, as well as attempted murder and rape. His bail has been set at a whopping $1.25 million, and it's not going to get dropped this time. Do you have any Tinder horror stories? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked the video so far, be sure to subscribe to see more awesome content. Number 5. The man who dissolved his Tinder date. On December 3, 2016, 26-year-old Frances Ruth Ibarra was reported missing from her home in Mexico after not answering her friend's phone calls. Later, it was found out that Ibarra had been dating a 26-year-old man named Emmanuel Delani Valdez Bocanegra, a medical student she met on, you guessed it, Tinder. The last time Ibarra was seen alive was at Bocanegra's house, so when police investigated there, they found a bag with human bones in it, along with hydrochloric acid and caustic soda in his balcony. After a DNA test, it was confirmed that remains were Ibarra's. Apparently, after she refused to have sex with him, he dissolved her body in acid. During his arrest, he was completely emotionless and had no sympathy for the victim whatsoever. His trial will be held soon, and if all goes well and justice is served, he should be put away for life. Number 4. The murderer who recorded his crime. On August 8, 2014, the body of 26-year-old Wariana Wright was found on the ground floor of Avalon Apartments on the Gold Coast. She was visiting the area to attend a wedding. It was supposed to be an average week-long trip, and she was supposed to return home right after the event. But the day before, Wright met up with her Tinder date, 28-year-old Gable Toasty, at his apartment building. Toasty said that he had an obsession with recording every single one of his dates. He would record their conversations on his phone and had secret cameras everywhere. People who knew him found this extremely creepy, which it is, but he said that it was purely for, quote, security purposes, and it was usually enough to keep anyone from prodding further. When police reviewed their conversation a few minutes before Wright's death, she and Toasty had an argument, and things didn't stop there. A couple minutes later, the fight became pretty rough, and at one point you could hear Wright making choking noises as if Toasty was strangling her. He also told Wright, quote, "You're lucky I haven't chucked you off my balcony yet," end quote. Toasty's defense at court claimed he was extremely drunk the night of the murder and wasn't thinking properly, but that doesn't hold up when you take a look at what happened next. Police speculate Toasty made Wright feel so unsafe she thought she had to escape. When she tried to get away, she realized that the balcony was her only way out. Unable to climb over to a neighbor's balcony, she ended up falling 14 stories to her death. Whether Toasty deliberately pushed her or not, it was clear he was the reason for her death. He was arrested shortly after the body was found and charged with the murder and manslaughter, but it didn't last long. Fast forward to October 2016, all of the charges were dropped and he walked home a free man. Just pray you don't see him on Tinder. Number 3. The jig is up. In February 2015, 26-year-old Alana Rose Jones and a man she met on Tinder went on a date and ended up going back to her place to relax. When they got there, Jones' date ended up falling asleep. Although that alone was rude, it wasn't the reason the date turned sour. While he was sleeping, he kept getting text messages, and it was constant. When Jones checked his phone, she realized the man actually had a girlfriend, and she was asking him where he was. Jones called the girlfriend and told her she and he slept together, but his girlfriend kept asking to speak with him. Extremely angry, Jones woke the man up and told him to get out. While he was still disoriented, she used her kitchen knife and stabbed him multiple times, forcing him to leave violently. Thankfully, he got out with a pretty minor cut to his forearm. After the man left, Jones called the police and said she stabbed a man that attacked her, but when the police arrived, they were able to figure out pretty quickly Jones was the aggressor all along. Alana Rose Jones was sentenced to 18 months after she pleaded guilty to assault and causing bodily harm. While she was out on bail, she actually punched a random woman she didn't even know in the face for no reason. The woman ended up getting temporary blindness, a broken nose, and a broken tooth too. Easy to say Jones seriously has some issues to work through. Number 2. Bamboozled. On June 1st, 2021, after a welfare check at his apartment, police found the body of 40-year-old Jerry Smith. The day before, 18-year-old college football player Isaman Etude came to Smith's place after the two met on Tinder. But, according to Etude, Smith catfished him by posing as a woman named Angie. After he found out Smith was in fact not a woman, Etude punched and stomped on his face until he died. Etude said Smith didn't even try to fight back or call the police at all. When Etude's university found out he was a suspect for the case, they ended up suspending him, which resulted in him losing his linebacker position. Isaman Etude has been since charged with second-degree murder but was released on $75,000 bail. He's required to wear an ankle monitor at all times and stay with his family. family. He was also supposed to appear in court in September of 2021. Number 1. Secret Lover. On April 5th, 2015, Army Sergeant Emil Cilliers, a married man, met another woman on Tinder and fell in love. He didn't know what to do about his wife of 4 years, so naturally, he tried to kill her by tampering with her parachute when she went skydiving. His wife, 44-year-old Victoria Cilliers, was an experienced parachutist and had completed over 2,600 dives without a problem. Emil got rid of the important parts of Victoria's parachute, so when she jumped, it caused her to spin completely out of control. But since she was an experienced skydiver, she knew exactly what she had to do. Her parachute was a twisted mess, and she knew she had to untangle it, but she wasn't able to untangle the chute in time and fell to the ground. By some sort of miracle, Victoria did not die, but she did break her spine in 3 different places, as well as her leg, ribs, pelvis, and collarbone. She said the only reason that she was able to survive was because, quote, "my children need me." Emil wanted to claim over 120,000 pounds of life insurance that he would receive after Victoria died so he could pay off his debts. He also caused a gas leak at their family's house while he was away, just a few days before he tried to kill his wife in the, quote, parachuting accident. He was found guilty of attempted murder in his second trial in 2018 and has to serve a minimum of 18 years in prison. Hopefully long enough for him to learn his lesson. Thanks for watching. What's your favorite story today? Will you still use Tinder after what you've heard? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit subscribe for more. See you next time on The Bad Badger.